Super Thinker Guide, A Pure Free Mind. Super Thinker Introduction. I have ceased to question stars and books. I have begun to listen to the teaching my blood whispers to me. Hermann Hesse. My schooling interfered with my education. There must be education for every man, rich or poor. Confucius. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Basic personal education and mind power are natural inspiration. Naturally inspired people want to learn about themselves and the world. Most people aren't like this. They want to learn enough to get a skill, make money, then watch TV, play video games, eat junk food and be addicted to something that's ultimately not healthy. Renaissance or enlightened people strive to open their minds, reach Kundalini, clean out the pineal gland to think freely and purely. Great thinking is about memory enhancement, brain power, educational psychology, educational philosophy, etc. Listen to yourself away from the brainwash of the world. Chapter 1. The Liberal Education Guide. The big secret is that all the education about life is inside of you, given by God. Society pretends it has a bunch of formal social science, humanities, liberal arts knowledge, but for enlightened people, it's BS. Next to what's in their souls. I have ceased to question stars and books. I have begun to listen to the teaching my blood whispers to me. Hermann Hesse. My schooling interfered with my education. There must be education for every man, rich or poor. Confucius. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Most people don't think much about education until they're ready to go to college or need some kind of training for a job. I've written a job and career book which covers that end fairly well, listing trade and accrediting organizations to network you into education to prepare you directly for most of the jobs out there. But I developed this book because I wanted to package all sectors within the realms of both formal and free-spirited education together and tell you exactly where to go to get whatever you might want. I wanted to create an education resource book that any person could use to find resources for just about anything out there within the entire realm of knowledge, not just education from a formal schooling point of view. Because I went through the college system and taught for several years, I want to present my view, which basically says that unless you plan to go to school for a bona fide, hardwired practical skill with feasible job opportunities, don't waste your time on the frivolous delusions you may have been brainwashed by in the school system, media, or wherever. Liberal arts majors and fields like interior decorating or creative writing may appear cute at the outset, but most of the world does not live in this soap opera type fantasy world, so you'll have a hard time finding meaningful employment with these credentials. Do yourself a favor, don't follow the lead of millions of naive folk before you who studied whatever they took a fancy to without any hard-nosed research beforehand as to whether there's a real job at the end of the line, then ended up with worthless degrees driving taxis or working as waitresses. So the bottom line is to research a field for practical job opportunities before you go into it, and don't blindly assume that just because they offer the program at a school, there must be jobs out there in the field, because a school's business is making money by filling up them classroom seats and charging you hefty tuition fees, not helping you find a job. After they get your money, they don't care about you and often don't tell you how useless a lot of their so-called education is. I go into this discussion more in depth in the book because I've seen many of my friends and acquaintances spend a lot of time in school getting degrees that yielded them absolutely nothing in the real world. Whereas other education books are all pro-education or just neutrally provide the information, not telling you this little deception within our education system, I'm ringing the bell loudly and proclaiming with all my might, you'd better pick something that's needed en masse out in society in a real practical way, and after you get a solid job, you can go back to dabbling with your artsy-fartsy creative endeavors and possibly work it into a job or business later. But don't do as millions do and get useless artsy type degrees or credentials in fields that are meaningless for employment in the real world unless you're doing it for your own intrinsic pleasure in the first place. There are several books and websites out there that cover all the American colleges and universities in detail, so that's not my purpose here. To describe colleges, although I do provide a list of most of the colleges out there. You can easily find one of these books at hashtag 378.15 or L901LB2344 at the library and on the college link websites I list up ahead. If you go to the library, they usually have a reference section and a general stacks section. The most recent college books will be at hashtag 378.15 in the reference section. The older ones will be in the stacks where you'll be able to sign them out. If you want general books about how to prepare for college mentally and financially, go to this section of the library too. As a person who lives as a free thinker, I can't help but constantly seek out new interesting things to occupy my mind with. This is my concept of education, the natural evolution of my life through my intrinsic thirst for knowledge. I don't necessarily buy into the formal system of education, but it does its job to create workers for society, even if it brainwashes most people in the process. My place is not to judge, merely to present useful information. However, if you're interested in freeing your mind, check out some of the books at autodidactic.com, akpress.org, amukbooks.com, dangerousbooks.com, or lumpanix.com. The liberal education. The word education is derived from the Latin word educo, which means to develop from within. All civilization comes through literature now, especially in our country. A Greek got his civilization by talking and looking, and in some measure, a Parisian may still do it. But we, who live remote from history and monuments, we must read or we must barbarize. W.M. Dean Howells, The Rise of Silas Lapham. They always want to know more. The Renaissance Man Creed. Was the liberal education designed to create refined gentlemen or business people capable of making lots of money? Almost nobody talks about the pursuit of a noble life as a philosopher king nowadays, because it's all about money and status. But I can define a noble lifestyle in one sentence, and you can see whether that's who you are or not. If you think you can, you must. If you feel a voice or an energy within yourself, you have to pursue it regardless of the artificial values of the world telling you to do something else. Who has this kind of courage in the modern world of massive indoctrination? Education, in its purest, noblest sense, is not about creating punctual conformist worker clones. It's about creating people who think for themselves and have the guts to speak up against the status quo if need be. Liberal arts was traditionally the courses that made up the classical curriculum, such as art, foreign languages, history, literature, social studies, music, and philosophy, because in the old days they didn't have the high-skilled world we have now. They needed to create refined gentlemen who could do basic paperwork and socialize with one another. But nowadays, with skill-based education, only the artsy-fartsy types seem to have the time and the inclination to study subjects that have no tangible benefit in the so-called real world. So when you talk about a liberal education, you're talking about someone who took the time to study all these soft, social science type fields for the experience and the intrinsic interest in the knowledge, rather than some tech nerd who went to school, learned how to program computers, and that's it. No one path is better, either the liberal education or the skills-oriented education. You have to do what you're interested in that can earn you a living in the real world and satisfy what you feel in your soul. The liberal education has its roots going all the way back to Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates, the ancient Greek philosophers who advocated the concept of the golden mean and the philosopher king. Then during the Renaissance period in Europe, the Renaissance man was promoted as the ideal man, the wise man with an appreciation for the arts and sciences, but also with physical prowess, an ability to deal with people and rule kingdoms if necessary. In essence, the liberally educated man, somebody who lives for the art of life as an end itself and has a well-rounded ability to do most things. When I think of the liberally educated person, I think of Jean-Jacques Rousseau with his social contract, which promotes a kind of free-spirited, liberal approach to life as an exploration of one's intrinsic interests, or James Joyce's portrait of the artist as a young man, which came to the same conclusion as the young protagonist, Stephen Dedulu's, peeled off the layers of his social conditioning one by one to reveal the essence that he was. Nietzsche's concept of the Superman fits in here too, Simply someone with enough ego and individuality to break from the pack and aspire to be who they are in living out a glorious life for themselves. And don't forget Abe Lincoln's concept of the self-educated man. The purpose of all education in the purest sense of the word is to create an autonomous individual able to think for himself critically and reject what he perceives as indoctrination or bull. But from my observations, a lot of our schooling nowadays produces good conformists who go along with the system's grand plan for people's lives rather than questioning everything and trying to chart their own course. Education exists to help you clear your own mind, to come to your own conclusions about life. I got my liberal education first at a military academy, then I went to several civilian universities, after which I came to the conclusion that my life is me, I create it by doing what I deem is right, part of which is to learn a little bit about all academic aspects of life and try to keep a balance of the different dimensions of the human condition, which roughly speaking are inspiration, hedonism, sensuality, aesthetics, love/affection, practical reality, common sense, the search for the transcendent, the mystical, the super-subconscious mind. You can fake being a liberally educated person simply by going to number 28 to number 31 at the library and reading some of the almanacs and reference books there. Then you can impress people with your worldliness at social functions, but you can usually spot truly liberally educated people because they live life for the art of the process of it. They have a curiosity, a thirst for knowledge and sense of inspiration that goes beyond the generic one-dimensional human being who trains for a job, works it, goes home, watches TV. That's the extent of his or her life and they're happy with it. The liberally thinking person simply wants more out of life than the average redneck. They want to have a fertile mind, live for inspired action from the soul, get some sensual pleasures and even some love and affection to go along with it, to live life as a glorious adventure of many experiences. For books that attempt to categorize knowledge and list the best books in the world, go to #2831 or Z1003 at the library. I've seen some anthologies there that summarize the best 100 books in the world or something like that into a page each, so you can conceivably grasp all these ideas these writers were trying to get out as quickly as you want to. Go to the ebooks section, the literature websites section and the book websites section and simply read a variety of literature through the ages, then think about it after you're done. Read some biographies of great people from the past too. etext.virginia.edu/toc/modng/public/JEF letter from Thomas Jefferson to his future son-in-law advising him that self-education beats formal education hands down. Liberal arts/humanities/social sciences. Education is a social process. Education is growth. Education is not a preparation for life. Education is life itself. John Dewey. The social sciences are the study of people as they live together in society. Some social science subjects are anthropology, communication studies, economics, human geography, history, political science, psychology and sociology. Some people, like me, think that this stuff is a bunch of fake, useless, manufactured knowledge because it's all opinion trying to masquerade as fact. I don't deny that a few ideas make good sense, like the multiplier effect in economics, Machiavelli's The Prince in describing the true nature of man, and the idea that democracy should be one vote per man or woman for the actual major issues, not like they have it now with the people voting to elect a person to represent them who most of the time becomes another generic one of them elitist fat cats seduced by power and privilege, insulated in their little bubble on the hill in Parliament. Everybody lives alone in their own heads. Everybody with intelligence can figure things out in the moment, and most people have some type of natural intuition that guides them. If you study all them knucklehead theories in economics, psychobabble, political science, oxymoron, etc., you soon realize they were mostly created by little introverted nerds with no scope of how life really works in the real world, and on top of that, they all contradict each other. A bunch of knuckleheads get PhDs in one so-called social science or another. The really wise, enlightened ones soon realize it's a bunch of bull and either stay on for the paycheck or go off and do what they really want to do with their lives. The other ones try to hype themselves up by playing this game, acting like they know some important, valuable stuff which makes them special, advanced people. The contradiction is that if you were really smart and advanced, you'd see it for the convoluted, iatrogenic crap it is and get on with following what you really feel in your soul, but they go on, teaching these useless courses year after year while the naive students, too culturally indoctrinated to see the truth at this point in their lives, buy into it, at least for a while. Some snap out of this formal academic delusion and go on to free themselves from all these lies, but most will live out their whole lives thinking there are experts and theories in these so-called social science that are laid in stone. They're not. It's a big con game on the unsuspecting masses. Nobody's ideas are any more advanced or expert than anyone else in any soft subject dealing with how people live. We got too many phony experts for all this stuff. People can think on their own. You learn most things about life by living it in your local area one day at a time, not by studying social sciences in school. I think they should cut this stuff out after grade 6 and teach children about money, health, family living, jobs, business, etc. The social sciences fraud. Walt Whitman said, "You must not know too much, or be too precise or scientific about birds and trees and flowers and watercraft." A certain free margin and even vagueness, perhaps ignorance, credulity, helps your enjoyment of these things. People have written about the human condition since the beginning of humanity. A few people tried to record events which we call history. Others used to think about the human condition, then write ideas about it. We call this philosophy. This was all fine and good until about 100 or so years, when we started to call these contemplations and ponderings on life the social sciences, because they are not science. No matter how much you dress them up with quantitative research methods, they cannot predict what people will do, and they cannot dissect the human soul. The question to me is always, how will this stuff help me live a better life? When I run up hills as part of my lifestyle, I think to myself, what has any of that stuff in all the social science academic libraries of the world done to enhance my life? The truth is nothing. I figured it all out on my own. I live by own standard, honoring my true nature by releasing most of my natural energy every day to be the person I feel I was born to be by the force within myself called my soul. As a naive young man, I majored in psychology because I wanted to learn about life. Up until then, I had only been in public libraries and grade school libraries, so I was exposed to an academic library for the first time. They're different from regular libraries, firstly because they use the Library of Congress cataloging system, while general interest libraries use the Dewey Decimal System, but the big difference is that they focus on academic publications. Up until then, I did not know what an academic journal was. These are kind of like magazines for thousands of different academic subjects that are published either monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly. They are legitimate for the hard sciences, medicine, and mathematics, where people from everywhere contribute articles to make progress in the development of the field. The problem is that the so-called social sciences are not sciences. They are musings on the human condition, yet there are now thousands of social science journals out there. Every month or quarter, they each come out with a new edition, regardless of whether these new articles have real, bona fide knowledge in them or are fake, manufactured knowledge created to perpetuate what are essentially fake fields, because you can only go so far in analyzing history, economics, education, psychology, sociology, etc. Beyond basic insights, it's bull. It doesn't help anyone live a better quality of life. There are limits to knowledge about the human condition. There is basic common sense, intuitive knowledge about how to learn and how to live well. Beyond that, there is a huge X factor in any situation, because individuals are not predictable. They make their own decisions, often without any rhyme or reason involved. The problem for the social science fields is that there is a new crop of graduates every year. Some of them get jobs as professors and feel they have to make their mark, but there is nothing new to discover, yet they continue to do meaningless studies that amount to nothing. Human nature is basic. It's not rocket science. The truth is that the so-called science of psychology does not recognize a basic model of human nature. It has a mix of psychoanalysis, behaviorism, and humanism which complexified the human being and detracts from seeking a simple understanding of an individual's essence/soul. How many times can you actually split hairs on basic common sense knowledge trying to complexify it to make it sound profound and advanced? Nobody reads these academic journals but college students and academics in the profession trying to get published. The old guys who are tenured don't read them anymore. They know it's bull yet they keep their mouths shut and collect their paychecks. If you read any scholarly, academic book in the humanities, then go to the reference section at the back, you will see pages and pages of articles cited from hundreds of different social science journals. They call this knowledge and the progress of knowledge. It's really a bunch of mini industries, trying to perpetuate these fields, pretending there is always more knowledge to discover in them. The truth is that the social sciences are just a bunch of ideas centered around a topic. If you're studying education as a formal social science, you gradually realize that there are some basic, common sense rules about how to maximize learning. Then after that, there is nothing that matters much. Why don't intelligent people in these fields say enough is enough? Let's not waste time researching this basic stuff anymore and filling up those social science journals with useless articles, but it never ends. This is why I'm so down on the social sciences. Beyond the point of basic common sense knowledge, they do not help the human race in any way at all. I think they should stop the expansion of some of these fields and move our societies more towards learning practical subjects and skills rather than teaching such innocuous fields as education, sociology, or psychology in college. It's the business of the academic fields. It's a modern-day tragedy that almost no one talks about, the useless knowledge being taught at our colleges masquerading as advanced insights into the human condition. They could burn all the social science journals in the world and it wouldn't skip a beat. Who will stop the insanity of fake knowledge in softball fields? No one. They're all too busy perpetuating the lie that they have advanced knowledge about the human condition. The liberal arts, intellectual skills, grammar, basic facts and structure of language, basic knowledge of any discipline, logic or dialectic, taught by questioning, the Socratic method of discussion and open inquiry, used to achieve understanding. Rhetoric, ability to write and speak in original, persuasive, and creative ways, to apply knowledge. Music, poetry, and music theory, the perception of aesthetics. Astronomy, empirical observation and use of mathematical models in the scientific study of the external universe. Mathematics, the study of numbers, abstract thinking. Geometry, the study of spatial relationships, including drawing, design, architecture, by extension, engineering, and the visual arts. Natural science, knowledge of the external objective world including chemistry, biology, physics. Moral science, knowledge of human relationships, including history, law, philosophy, the social sciences. Liberal education websites. AALE.org, American Academy for Liberal Education. AACU.org/liberal-index.cfm, Liberal Education. ditexty.com/lib/lib.html, Philosophy of Liberal Education Readings. Chapter 2. My Thoughts of Education. The real purpose of education. The real purpose of education is to help students learn how to think on their own as independent, autonomous people both in life and in learning a skill/profession. It is not to teach students to pass exams through rote learning or to memorize facts that have no real meaning to them. It is not about indoctrinating people to a certain way of life or point of view, but that is what a lot of formal schooling does. Know where to find information you might need and how to use it. Learn about the world's store of knowledge. Decide what is good and what is crap. Know where to go when you need knowledge in a certain topic. Education is supposed to be about your love for your life. Explore the world on your own. Make mistakes. Learn from them. Have empty, unstructured time so you will eventually gravitate towards your true nature. The goal of life is to be who you are by nature. I wrote this chapter because I'm both a formally educated man and a self-educated man. Even though the establishment is constantly pushing us to stay in school in order to get a good job, the true soul of learning is to help enable man reach his highest visions and stay inspired about his life forever, which is why I feel I owe it to anyone reading this book to show you that education is not just about flowery humanities stuff, nor is it all about the nuts and bolts of life and getting a good job. There's a higher purpose to it. You learn because it takes you higher than most other things in life, because the spirit of man is to get better and try harder. This is something you have to do by yourself. No school can teach you to be inspired about your own life. No school can educate you to love yourself so much that you want to reach your highest limits as an individual, as opposed to becoming just another indoctrinated clone working a job, pacified by TV, booze, and junk food. This is the great chasm of differences between a true intellectual and a good student concerned with his or her grades. It shouldn't really be about grades. It should be about learning for the spirit of it, because you want to, because it's who you are, because you love it. Too bad modern education has bred this out of most of us. It's all about tests, SATs, the prestige of different colleges, the paper chase, the bullshit of life according to the artificial values of the world system. RethinkingSeahools.org. Do you own your own mind? The graduations hang on the wall. But they never really helped us at all. They never told us what was real. Iron, coke, chromium, steel. Billy Joel, Allentown. Do you read a newspaper or watch the news regularly, even though it's the same old stuff repeated over and over again? Do you go to the movies, stores, and places you see advertised on TV? Do you think some TV character is cool like Bart Simpson, the Knight Rider, Brad Pitt, etc.? Do you get all excited when they announce that pop singer A is coming to your town to do a concert? Albert Einstein said, reading, after a certain age, diverts the mind too much from its creative pursuits. Any man who reads too much and uses his brain too little falls into lazy habits of thinking. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, there are many things of which a wise man might wish to be ignorant. Wisdom is not about knowing a bunch of facts and trivia bits you got from the world outside of yourself. Wisdom is knowing your true essence and nature as a person and living to honor it by releasing most of your natural energy in a civilized, pro-social manner every day without hurting other people or breaking any laws. Most people give up their true identities and creative potential by default because they plug into the society around them without ever stopping to ask themselves, does that stuff relate to who I really am, or is it just another part of society's massive brainwashing marketing machine? Every day I spend a few hours in some aerobic activity like running, swimming, or biking where I'm alone to think my own thoughts purely. When I work on my computer, I spend more time creating than reading other people's opinionated stuff. When you know your true identity, which is who you were born to be, you always intuitively know what to do next. You're not aimless like the large percentage of the population who give up their minds to the artificial values of the world without ever realizing they have an inner purity which they should honor if they really want to be happy. It's okay to socialize and watch a silly TV show every day, but I rarely shoot the breeze for more than 15 minutes at a time, and my TV is always background because I'm always doing something constructive while mildly paying attention to the TV. The intrinsic thirst for knowledge. 1. Life should be a fun, interesting journey of exploration. Learn because you love to, for the creative, exploratory part of it. We're all victims of massive brainwash whether we realize it or not. In fact, the system is so good at brainwashing us that many of us think we're free even though we've been led along to subscribe to the standard version of the capitalist American dream without even realizing there are alternative options for people who choose not to follow this version of life. First, they sent you to school with their hidden agenda and tried to produce a good worker who assumed the system would take care of you as long as you played by its rules, namely get their version of what they call an education, then get a dull job within the system with no forethought of exploring your life, finding out who you really are away from all that stuff, and setting a course that comes from the pure part of you rather than just picking from among the options they offer. School may have given me the 3 R's, but they tried to destroy my soul in the process by channeling my mind into about 8 subjects, and that's it, neglecting other things I might have liked that didn't fit into their mold, like hiking, nature, my personal whims whenever I got them, the aesthetics of life, my interest in animals, archaeology, ancient astronauts, Zachariah Sitchin's work, Dr. Gene Scott's work, UFOs, soulful pursuits, creative expression, musical rhythm, hedonism, sex, romance, money, real estate, business sense, libertarianism, the injustice in the world, the true politics of power, the adventure of life, health, medicine, the body, the stock market, computer skills, the exploration of the subconscious mind, the exploration of my physical limits through intense exertion, the search for euphoria, intensity, and transcendence, meeting a wide variety of different people, seeing a wide variety of different places, trying different things for the experience of them. Watching good TV shows and old movies, studying enlightened people of the past from Socrates to Edison on through to Timothy Leary, a study of man's great imagination in seeking out meaning through religion, sorcery, philosophy, New Ageism, politics, etc. I feel cheated by my public school education. It wasted a lot of my time when I could have been exploring my life on my own, doing what I really wanted to do. To me, it's a lost institution which has degenerated into an archaic bureaucracy. They take a long time to teach the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and supplement it with a lot of useless knowledge most of us will never use, while neglecting the most important knowledge we need to function in life, the ability to think independently on your own, health knowledge, medical knowledge, money, how to deal with people, an awareness of the many job options out there, an awareness of going into business for yourself if you want, or pursuing other creative paths if you're so inclined, who you are in your spiritual essence, the adventure that life should be, what your true destiny should be, knowledge of the legal system, how to draw up a contract, how to buy a house, how to be a savvy consumer, how to find information you might need in any subject, how to educate yourself in anything, home repair, basic car care, the obligations of love, marriage, and family life, how to help out in the world, how to be an activist. All things that are way more relevant than what they're teaching in grade school these days. I know that as a free thinker on the fringes of society, I will never change the school system to make it more relevant, but I offer any enlightened school board any of my books as textbooks for a new direction to make school more relevant to life. But this is all a side point to my main argument. Take a look at any college campus and see all the lost souls being cared for by their perception of the benevolent paternalistic institution, this bastion of the system offering a limited education and a package deal of life to those intelligent enough to at least pick a practical major that will yield them a job. But where is the voice that says self-education is the real path of education? Almost nowhere, except through the obscure voices of a few enlightened souls, because the system has bred it out of most of us such that people like me are looked upon as outcasts and everybody else is a bunch of little puppets thinking they got something, but all they really got is a limited education, a lost soul, minds polluted by the media, comfortable homes, and the path to a dull job in the rat race. So what? Creating your own life naturally as you feel it is the only true way to go. The intrinsic thirst for knowledge too. Scholars should not have to study so much that they forget to think. You can't teach anyone anything. You can only help them find it within themselves. School is a brainwashing factory that produces functional, worker clones. I'm anti-high school because I believe most of it is a waste of time. If people want to go into the sciences and technology, start them off early and keep them there concentrated in that one area away from everybody else. As for most young people, the curriculum is obsolete. It needs an overhaul with courses on how to manage life in the subjects which I've written my books about, like money, real estate, home, the job market, business, health, family, law, love, sex, education, travel, consumerism, and particularly a research course on how to find the information you're looking for, whatever it might be, kind of like library research and internet navigation all in one. Beyond that, High school for me was a waste of my valuable time that I could have spent exploring and enjoying my life had I known better back then. If I like history, I'll watch the History Channel or read books about it, which I've done in the past but have since moved on to other things. I don't want to spend my time learning about it in a dull way in what they call a classroom. They could easily drop a year from high school and nobody would skip a beat, but that isn't the point of this article. Suffice to say that I believe for intrinsically inspired people, which should be everyone, beyond the basics of the 3 R's, I'm a self-learner in the things that I want to do, and at this point in time, it's all about learning how to be self-sufficient, which means learning to think for yourself, to live your life the way you want. This should be the goal of our publicly funded formal education, not to create clones who will be ready to do a dull job, but to create critical thinkers out for their own self-interest, wise enough to know that in order to get what they want they have to help others get what they want. This is the major law of a free market economy. Rather than conditioning people that the American dream is college then a dull career, there should be more emphasis on the self-doers, the people who want to do their own thing and start their own businesses. At least present that option in school. Life to me is a process of discovering your own identity, then living by your own standard. In my college experience, the act of going to the college classes didn't really do much for me. I could have learned it all by myself through reading books and finding people interested in the same things to talk to, and this is most of what I did, aside from some generic studying for silly tests where I forgot most of the information after a few weeks anyway. My point is that the act of going to college provided me with a justifiable excuse as to why I wasn't working a full-time job or pursuing a career, which is a great period in the development of young, naive people if they let it be. Here you have the opportunity to experiment with life in a relatively safe setting with free time and still have the safety of your parents' home. College is a transitional period between parents' home and career and should be treated as a major life experience where you do most of your learning outside the classroom. To me, the curriculum is mostly a fairy tale except for the few real practical subjects like medicine, law, and engineering. Nobody in college ever told me about the option of doing your own thing, creating your own life, making your money by finding a need and filling it. This is a major defect in our formal education system. I don't want to get on the bandwagon of the futility of high school here, other people have done that, I just want to point you in that direction if you're interested in the free spirit alternative to conventional schooling. As an ideology, it's called unschooling, which is to not follow a curriculum but simply go where the child's interests take him and get out into the real world to see how it operates. This is the real way to live life. Educate yourself and be educated according to where your natural interests take you, but in a world of capitalist education based on grades, tests, pass marks, standards, etc., we seem to have lost our way trying to cram artificial knowledge we have no real love or use for into our brains to make a good mark on some tests so we can move through the hoops of grade school to get into college, so we can move through the hoops there so we can get a dull job somewhere and call it success, while we stay on the treadmill trying to go through more hoops to reach the higher levels in whatever company or organization we happen to work for, which always comes down to dull, uninspired lives, living by an agenda other than our true, own personal agendas, which has been systematically brainwashed out of most of us ever since we started watching TV and going to grade school. This is the standard definition of life in a capitalist world. It's not all bad. It fulfills the function of producing workers who do the job, but it kinda misses the point, which is to live life as a great, glorious experience, like the Native American intellectual, shaman and warrior Crowfoot said. What is life? It is a flash of a firefly in the night. It is the breath of a buffalo in the winter time. It is the little shadow which runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. True education is not forcing some artificial knowledge like lists and empty facts down somebody's throat, wanting them to regurgitate it then forgetting about it as everybody does within a month or two. It's gently bringing out whatever true inherent power and curiosity a child has inside of themselves about life and the world in general. With the spirit of this in mind, there are a number of books out there which have already taken the torch of free spirit education and examined it fully, such as the Teenage Liberation Handbook, How to Quit School and Get a Real Life and Education by Grace Llewellyn. It reminds me of that movie from 1973, The Paper Chase, where all these guys are stuck in their little narrow world of law school and the main character's girlfriend tells him she wishes he'd fail, then maybe he might wake up to see the reality of life for what it is, not this limited treadmill he's on. At the end, he gets his report card, makes a paper airplane out of it and throws it away into the ocean. We don't know if he passed or failed, but it signifies him freeing himself from that paper chase to live a free life, or at least that was my interpretation of it. Life is more than getting good grades, moving up the education ladder of success so you can start at the bottom of the career ladder of success and move up through there in a boring, predictable, stilted fashion. Approximately 20 or so years ago, I was involved in this academic paper chase with all my friends back then. We'd have deep philosophical discussions and smoke dope, and now 20 years later, it looks as though I'm the only one who stayed on the path of self-discovery long enough to realize that the formal school agenda might net you a job, but so what if it doesn't make you happy, which I discovered meant I had to stay inspired about my life, and the means to do it was outside the realm of conventional jobs. So here I am writing a book telling you about it. At least make an effort to experience life and try to dig in to find the real power inside yourself, rather than just going along with the system's package deal all set up for you and always feeling a dull sense of emptiness inside because somewhere deep down, you know you cheated yourself out of your true destiny by being a compromise wimp who chose the conventional path of the system to live your life, namely a steady job and a comfortable mundane lifestyle over an intense, passionate life. Living true to yourself. Truly successful people in society find what they like to do, what's in their souls, then essentially teach themselves and learn from a community of kindred spirits they find who feel the same way they do about their particular interests, regardless of whatever they might be. School brainwashes you into being a functional conformist. The alternative philosopher Bertrand Russell concluded that those with the most education were often the most atrophied and limited because they narrowed their scope down into that little box of so-called expertise that gave them their so-called credentials. Life is an adventure, an experience to try to find what's in your subconscious mind, the real you, and live it out to reach your particular version of transcendence and inspiration as much as you can, kinda like Robert Louis Stevenson in Crabbed Age and Youth. Youth, or all of life, is the time to go flashing from one end of the world to the other, both in mind and body, to try the manners of different nations, to hear the chimes at midnight, to see sunrise in town and country, to be converted at a revival, to circumnavigate the metaphysics, write halting verses, run a mile to see a fire, and wait all day long in the theater to applaud Hernani. Albert Einstein believed that formal education created brainwashed clones. Instead, he suggested that each of us walk our own path, create our own destinies by learning what we want as we go along. You might find books about this topic called Self-Culture, Homeschooling or Unschooling at hashtag 371.394 or LC32 at the library. John Holt has been a pioneer in this natural form of education with books like Escape from Childhood, Freedom and Beyond, Teach Your Own. Alan Bloom with The Closing of the American Mind is another critic of this anti-intellectual formal schooling system we have today, geared for getting marks and passing tests without any mention of the love of knowledge for its own sake as an adventure of time. Unschooling.org. Lowry House Publishers. Pog 1014. Eugene, Oregon, 97440-1014. 541-686-2315. Fax, 509-696-3310. LowryHousepub@aol.com. Several books in this area including the Teenage Liberation Handbook. Dropout Magazine. The Hindenburg. 1114 21st Street. Sacramento, California, 95814. 916-441-5526. Dropout at emrl.com. Growing Without Schooling Magazine. 2380 Massachusetts Avenue. Number 104. Cambridge, Massachusetts, 02140. 617-864-3100. Info@holtgws.com. holtgws.com. The intrinsic thirst for knowledge. 3. When I think back to all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. And though my lack of education hasn't hurt me none, I can reading the writing on the wall. Paul Simon, Kodachrome. I have ceased to question stars and books. I have begun to listen to the teaching my blood whispers to me. Hermann Hesse. The reason I created a free spirit search for enlightenment and my other books is that I went through the college system, then went out into the workforce and got a job within the system as a teacher, but soon realized how naive and ignorant I was about the things that really matter in life: money, real estate, health, business, job hunting, love, sex, romance, family, taxes, practical information, etc., and that I was still empty and unfulfilled as a human being even though I had gone through the standard path of success in the American dream and supposedly had a respectable, successful, middle-class job. I did the only sane thing I felt I could do, which my acquaintances thought was foolish while my friends supported me. I rejected it all to live by my own code, and through the process, created a path that others might learn from my life's experience as to what's real in life without getting bamboozled by all the propaganda and conventional crud out there, which starts out with the education system, which is all wrong for enlightened minds who learn for the sake of learning to become more enlightened, noble people, both for themselves and for humanity in general. What it's really all about is learning how to learn in order to control your life, learning what to learn to keep you happy and inspired, and knowing where to go to get any information you might need. Most of us are brainwashed into thinking that college is the American dream. However, college is a fantasy land and the land of broken dreams for many people who get advanced degrees in some soft major then end up desperate for a job. Although I don't believe in college for truly enlightened people, it's still a haven for millions who go looking for life, excitement, enlightenment, and good jobs. Before you major in something, make sure it's a bona fide, necessary skill that there's a need for, like dentistry, nursing, criminal justice, etc. Beware that there are too many lawyers and too many journalism majors around. Beware of flaky majors with very few job opportunities. For time expended, you can probably make more money and never be out of a job with a basic down-to-earth, practical skill. People with psychology majors driving taxis are a dime a dozen, but a plumber is always in demand somewhere. Waste disposal is a real, basic, hardcore need. Sociology isn't. A girl I knew went to South Africa to study African literature, a nice person but totally clued out as to the reality of life. She got her doctorate, came back and got depressed when she couldn't find a job because she didn't realize that just because she got the degree doesn't mean they're out there waiting to hire her for her great mind. A long time ago, when Billy Joel sang a song called Allentown, a line from it stood out in my mind all those 20 or so years ago, that the real world is made up of iron, coke, chromium, steel. That's the real world. The fantasy, soppy liberal arts world for most people is relegated to a few minutes at night when they listen to talk radio as they fall asleep or watch the Learning Channel on TV. Beyond that, people care about real things like houses, cars, food, running water, toilet, sewage, teeth, health, etc. This is the real world. Find a skill here that you can use to help people or create something completely original on your own that the world needs. Don't study a cornball English literature major that means nothing to anyone beyond you. Chart your own course and make your own way in the world, earn your keep by creating something from within that can either help, inspire, or amuse people. I repeat, college is fantasy land. You supposedly go there to learn about life by getting away from home, but most of the stuff they teach there does not apply to the real world. Then when people graduate and realize their degrees are useless, they feel cheated by the system, but the system doesn't care. It's busy pumping out another crop of naive bumpkins with useless degrees. Don't waste your time at college unless you pick a practical major upfront, or unless you sincerely want to learn about academic things simply for the intellectual stimulation, but in that case, you can learn on your own. Unless you're studying for a specific skill like engineering or medicine, reconsider going to college because liberal arts and many other degrees are basically useless for helping you find a job or teaching you any meaningful skill that can earn you money. Business education too is a waste of time because you learn on the job and by reading books on your own. Hashtag 650-659 at the library. Experience in the real world is the key to success in life. Most rich people are those who never bothered with college much. Rather they went out, worked for a while, then either started their own businesses or worked their way up. Education is not bad, it's just that college education is largely overrated. You can learn the meat much better by focusing on what you need on your own rather than bothering with all that useless college crud they call formal education. College is a business venture where you pay money for a commodity called a degree which you hope will get you a good paying job. Beyond that, it's a useless piece of paper that has only illusory meaning because it has very little to do with real enlightenment in life. Yet just because all these people are walking around with doctorates in liberal arts subjects, we assume they have wisdom, but most don't. They have been brainwashed by the college curriculum to the extent that they can't see simple reality anymore. It's clouded over by all that psychobabble they learned in school. Career success and all the other work-related results of the Industrial Revolution are not really the true nature of man. They're illusions created by the society we live in, perpetuated by the school system which prepares us to become conforming, productive, ritualistic workers. Granted, we need money to pay bills, but there are ways around the sacrifice of your life for a dull job, like to have few material needs, earn money through your creative efforts, do a job or start a business which you intrinsically love, find interesting alternative or part-time work and use your money to earn money in investments like stocks, which are simple for anyone with half a brain to do some basic research, or buy multi-unit dwellings like duplexes and rent them out to decent people who won't trash them. Formal education is a big box that society has brainwashed us by. Alan Bloom wrote a book called The Closing of the American Mind, where he dispels many of the myths about the so-called American dream, which automatically assumes that to be a winner, you go to college. There are a number of other books that criticize the college model, among them Ivory Tower Blues, The University System in Crisis by Vincent Coate and Anton Allaher. The so-called professors play along with the fantasy that what they do in the classroom has relevance to life because they want to preserve their delusions of grandeur and keep their jobs by pretending they have some exclusive knowledge that the dumb plebe students want. But the truth is that most students just want the marks on their transcripts and don't really care about the knowledge to develop themselves as liberally educated people. It's an ego protection thing for these so-called professors, plus the very real delusion that their jobs are meaningful and necessary. You could eliminate at least half of all the artsy-fartsy majors out there and the world wouldn't skip a beat. If you want to waste money on college, get a degree in a useless major, then try to get a good job with it. The world is way ahead of you. This also works for graduate degrees. A lot of people think that if they get a master's or a doctorate, they're more advanced and employable. The world doesn't really care much about academic degrees. It cares about somebody who can do a practical job, and that's it. I knew a guy who got a doctorate in history and kept trying every year for a job as a history professor, but he never got one beyond his part-time gig at a community college. The jobs aren't there. Anybody who's been around knows that the only true education about life is that of experience and teaching yourself, i.e., Abe Lincoln's concept of self-education. You forget everything you learn in college within a few years, so degrees are useless unless you keep up with the latest developments in the field you're in. You forget 90% of everything you learn within 6 months anyway, so you have to constantly replenish it if you're for real. I saw some guy on a dating TV show who said the girl wasn't his type because he had a degree and she didn't. Not only did he make an ass of himself, but was totally brainwashed by the myth of the academic degree. The only worth anyone has is who they are when they stand directly in front of you, being real people. It doesn't matter how many degrees or awards they have. It means very little to real, non-brainwashed human beings. Universities are all about making money. Think about it, the commodity is that overrated piece of paper called a degree, and about all that money they make in college sports. When I lived in Gainesville, Florida, the Gators added another 20,000 seats to the stadium, plus they were getting big bucks for the TV rights in televising their games. Steve Spurrier, the football coach at the time, was making $1 million or so a year while professors were making about 50 Gs. Formal schooling channels the creative mind into convergent pursuits, namely the different subjects and the hidden agenda of creating punctual conformists. Almost nobody ever gets enlightened in a college classroom, including the so-called teachers who got their so-called enlightenment by taking low-level, sanitized courses somewhere. It's all a game of steps towards a commodity, a piece of paper called a degree or a grade which might get you a better job, but other than that, it's meaningless to true enlightenment. Free thinkers live with no boundaries whatsoever, especially the boundaries of academia, which is a business venture which must keep creating new product in the way of phony knowledge in order to give off the illusion of cutting-edge viability. Formal education has packaged knowledge down into discrete fields and subfields, thus negating its true nature, which is thought unfettered, pure, and free. Education as the transference of knowledge is fine, but enlightenment comes from life alone, living it in the real world, exploring on your own, then analyzing your experiences of it from your perspective, for you by you. Enlightened free spirits live their entire lives as a learning experience. Life is the classroom. Education is simply the natural evolution of the self, not a packaged commodity limited to a classroom scenario. Although I'm a former student of psychology, I rejected it because you really can't learn about life from a sanitized course that's been cut up, boxed, then subjected to scientific scrutiny. When going in, I thought psychology would be all about the inner workings of the mind, why I and other people do what they do, but when I got into it, I found it to be all about a bunch of useless, trivial experiments that had very little real bearing on the guts of the human soul. The only insights you get out of life, as far as I'm concerned, are those that you get through experience, introspection, and analysis. Thinking about your life. It's all about self-education. No matter what, everything always comes down to intuition, your guts, and your soul. NewSociety.com, 800-567-6772, several books about the truth of the traditional education system. Chapter 3. True education is a constant awakening, a constant sense of inspired renewal. A modern learning culture. Encourage an intrinsic, constant thirst for knowledge fueled by natural inspiration. Use technology like the internet. Have online and email coursework. Each individual must maintain a curious mindset. Stimulate people's curiosity. You can't multitask because the brain can only do one thing at a time, but you can switch task, do several things one after the other quickly. It's best to slow down and enjoy what you're doing. The brain needs focused attention for learning. The brain is best at remembering emotional content. Permanent brain connections are made when people read, write, listen, talk, practice, and reflect. The brain is a whole. Forget about those myths like use 10% of your brain. Left or right brainer. Learn better in your favorite modality like visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. An age-based limited time for learning. Learn as lifestyle. Be positive. Learn any way you can and want. Knowledge and information vs. Wisdom and enlightenment. Our education system is focused on teaching knowledge and information, which are basically facts and skills that will enable us to get a decent job. The real purpose of life is to love who you are, know who you are by nature, and do it every day as an inspired flow of life. When you live like this, you love what you do. You are doing what you love. You are not cutting corners at work. You are not looking at the clock at work. You are not solely focusing on making money without regard for how. You are not constantly trying to be entertained by pop culture entertainment and frivolous material goods because you love what you. Your life is not empty and meaningless. The first dimension that the school misses is creativity and imagination thinking. Western schools focus on convergent thinking rather than divergent thinking. Convergent thinking is when you are basically a computer. You can regurgitate facts. With divergent thinking, you generate ideas. The next dimension is character. To me, A wise person cannot help but see the pain and suffering in the world and try to do something about it, unlike Western thinking, which is about making a bunch of money, buying a big house, big car, etc., and sitting pretty with all your meaningless junk thinking you're successful and hot. You have arrived. Morality is not tied to intelligence. Plenty of intelligent people are evil. I believe when you live by your true nature, as I talk about in my book A Free Spirit's Search for Enlightenment, you have to be true to yourself. You cannot live a frivolous life. You see the pain and suffering and you feel obligated to use at least some of your natural power to try to solve it. I am all for pleasure and hedonism, but while living that lifestyle, I know what I love to do and do it to help others. I believe we have to change our schools to my free spirit ideology so children learn what their true nature is, then live to honor it. This will keep them inspired. Inspired people always do good things for the world. It would be a much better society than this meaningless capitalist, pop culture society we live in now, where people are so empty that they have to constantly fill themselves up with food, booze, drugs, material goods, and entertainment. I don't need much. I'm happy as is because I earn my self-respect every day through what I do. Why most schools are screwed. The founding fathers in their wisdom decided that children were an unnatural strain on their parents, so they provided jails called school, equipped with tortures called education. John Updike. To trust children we must first learn to trust ourselves, and most of us were taught as children that we could not be trusted. John Holt. Most schools are FKed because they have inflexible packages of knowledge in their curriculum that they want to pass on to you so you can pass a test on the subject. They don't tell you to criticize the knowledge or create ideas about it on your own. Let people use their natural curiosity and love of learning. Our culture says they want to encourage and reward individuality and creativity, but they're really a bunch of conformists who want you to conform. The traditional idea is that there is a small group of people in authority who will tell you what to do and what you need to know, and that's it. Your own thoughts and intuition don't count. You must not think for yourself or try to do what you want to do. You will be punished or diagnosed with ADHD. They don't want you to aspire to live a full, interesting life. Figure out your life for yourself. Don't just go with the American Dream program, which sets people up to chase materialism and status at the expense of what's really in their souls. Why do they teach history and English literature at the expense of computers and technology? That's really where it's at for functional knowledge, especially using your computer to research knowledge you're interested in. After going through the traditional school system, you're probably a well-intentioned person who wants to succeed out in the world, but none of it really matters unless you live by the code in my book A Free Spirit's Search for Enlightenment. Follow your true nature, release that natural energy every day like you're riding on air. Schools kill curiosity and squash our natural desires to think for ourselves, to learn about things that actually interest us. The teachers aren't really to blame. They have to follow the curriculum, otherwise somebody with a meddling mother complains, then they get fired. Most start out with great intentions but say screw it and take the easy way out. Students get used to the standard memorization way and often can't relate to attempts at holistic education. The most important things are: 1. Teach the student to think for themselves. 2. Teach them how to find the practical and academic knowledge they're looking for. We're taught to receive information, not to think. Learn about what interests you. Learn by talking to people. Figure things out through trial, error, and intuition. Get out of your kid's way. Show him different things, then let him try them if he's interested. Don't say something like I played hockey so he will too. Childhood is about discovering your true nature, then living by it. If you don't and either follow the artificial values of the world or become pop culture consumer, you're screwed. Your life will never reach a sense of euphoric freedom. Too bad for you, et. That's why I smile to myself when I see all those clones out there thinking they got something, because it's evident they never reach that inspired state of euphoric freedom through what they do, so their lives are big flatlines despite their pop culture pretenses. The world's wisdom and your wisdom as a pure, natural being. The so-called system-sanctioned wise people in the non-scientific liberal arts fields, sometimes called social scientists, which is an oxymoron, have firstly all been programmed by some limited agenda at some school, and secondly not one has been brave enough or strong enough to live their lives freely and examine themselves as a case study of one. If they did, they wouldn't be a system clone pretending they know something that the regular people don't know, with all that crap they learned in school masquerading as knowledge and wisdom. They'd be living their own lives for the great adventure it's supposed to be, at least for truly free, enlightened people. Contrary to the myth, the most free-thinking intellectuals within the human race are not on college campuses, because formal education packages thought into separate fields and categories, then limits it in light of the current cultural zeitgeist, aka political correctness. The true free-thinking intellectuals are way too free and enlightened to waste time bothering with this charade. They're too busy being real with themselves, trying to get the most out of their finite lives, than to pretend they're wise intellectuals just because they allowed themselves to get brainwashed by the system in order to get some kind of credential proclaiming them to be an expert in some liberal arts field of life. The system academics in the humanities fields can spew off all kinds of theories, but many have never been out of their comfort zones even once in their lives to try to experience life for themselves in order to feel it and learn from it, yet we call them our wise people because they can regurgitate stuff from books written by other fallible people within the protocols of the particular academic field they're in. It's somebody else's version of knowledge and wisdom that somebody who has not experienced it firsthand is teaching out of a book. The formal education system has created such academic fields as psychology, philosophy, art history, and sociology, which are just ideas some people created out of thin air who are no more special or divine than you or me. Even history is a load of bull, because history is whitewashed crap written by the winners of the wars and the people in power, not the truth. In fact, all the soft-core humanities disciplines like literature, political science, art, etc. are somebody's interpretation of what is real, cool, divine and/or wise. A little piece of knowledge from these areas might hit a certain student and inspire him or her to become a better version of themselves, but there's nothing out there in college or anywhere else except for a few new age venues where they tell you to think for yourself. Figure your own life out. If they did, maybe they would lose revenue as people stopped taking all those softball liberal arts courses that usually amount to no great insights about life as lived. The problem with college for the liberal arts is brainwash. They're brainwashing us to whatever bent the particular professor or school is into. On top of that, your thinking is reduced to one field only. You can't bring other free thoughts in from other subjects, and then there's the pretense that it's science with all them stupid experiments and the whole definition of knowledge thing. Albert Bandura, professional psychologist, gets one of his college students to hit a Brutus doll while some kids watch. The college student leaves, the kids hit the bag. Bandura says this is proof that kids learn to be violent by imitating adults. What really happened is that the kids were having some transient fun which they would forget by tomorrow. Hansi Znek, a professional psychologist, creates some test that supposedly measures how introverted or extrovert you are, but he seems to forget that introversion-extroversion is transitory in everyone. We are introverted or extrovert depending on our current mood and the situation we're in. If we're with friends, we're extrovert. If we're with strangers, we're more reserved. It's manufactured knowledge that has no bearing on real life in the real world. Nobody ever talks about the natural intrinsic thirst for knowledge for its own sake. Somewhere along the way the love of learning got lost. It's all packaged into fields, courses, tests, essays, the final grade and credentials, but there is no such thing as a so-called expert in any non-scientific field, because everybody has their own opinion and it's just as valid as the next guy's, that is, if you're being fair about it. There's no right or wrong in some field like psychology, but the heads beg to differ. It's all a clean, neat package of theories and ideas which have no divine or scientific foundation, so it's really no more true or advanced than anyone's opinion who has thought a subject through, but they insist presenting this knowledge as dogma when the truth is that a lot of it is pure crap. The truly wise people are natural intellectuals who figure out their lives on their own because they know they must from an invisible force within themselves. Then they continue to learn because that's what they were born to do. Why don't the colleges have a mandatory course for freshmen called Learning to Think for Yourself, where they tell people the outside world of all ideas that are not scientific or physical law were all created by people just like themselves? They should explore them and think about the ones they like, but always trust only themselves as to what constitutes knowledge or wisdom for them. I thought James Joyce's novel Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man was a good story about how the character Stephen Dedalus confronted and questioned the traditional Irish institutions he was brought up to believe in, to reject them all to live by his own standard. But James Joyce, the man, was a temperamental, arrogant drunk who couldn't get along with people, not even his wife. It's not like I'm gonna worship this guy and think he's got all the answers to life. The organic study of the physical brain in the field of psychology has true merit, but other than that, it's just a bunch of psychobabble that has no more validity than anyone thinking about their lives, even if they do those stupid so-called scientific, quantitative methods experiments that always have the same qualifiers in the results, using such adjectives as could, might, tend, possibly, may, which is useless knowledge because it's all either common sense or human behavior is much too erratic for anyone to accurately predict. Any individual living their lives in the real world, analyzing their experiences to come to their own conclusions, can become as enlightened as the most enlightened person who ever walked on the planet, but the formal education system is trying to tell you that they have the answers within their packaged courses. Just shell out your money and go there. Then after it's all done, you should realize, as I did, that they're all somebody else's ideas. They don't come close to what I intuitively feel about my life as lived day by day. When you reach that point where you trust yourself over all the institutions, talking heads and charlatans in the world, congratulations, you're enlightened. If you're still looking to someone else to give you some answers, like the priest at church every Sunday, you buy the latest self-help book hyped up on a talk show, or you're deeply interested in the ideas of others and give some of them godlike status by virtue of their credentials or position somewhere, you're still a lost soul. Phony knowledge 1. They're telling us how to think in all the many psychobabble and self-help books they've created. It's like we forgot to live by the intuitive wisdom we were born with. We got formal college-educated experts in virtually every part of life who can solve your problems with official system-sanctioned knowledge for a fee, but to me it's a big pile of manufactured bull following the capitalist model of expansion. Create a product and expand it in order to sell more product, even if it's useless, as in the case of phony, trivial knowledge. Our lives have been packaged as a commodity. They got self-help books for every emotion, personality trait, type of relationship and hypothetical situation. You can read that stuff until you're blue in the face, but you'll forget it all within 3 days, because none of it addresses the holistic essence that you are and the intuitive way you live. Knowledge is good, but despite all the great progress in science and technology in the 20th century, this has been accompanied by a massive tidal wave of liberal arts, pop culture, new age, religious, pseudo-intellectual discourse, all masquerading as truth when in fact, it's 99% bull geared to complexify life and make money. Society got along fine before this explosion of useless knowledge hit the mass market, all in an effort to make money out of naive, lost suckers out there looking for answers. Keep your life simple, trust only yourself, find your center, then honor it by living by it as much as you can. The entire problem with our so-called civilized world is that we've given our power over to the business academia machine out there masquerading as the powers that be, who know something more than we know about our lives. The civilized world operates on the business model, which is geared for production and sales, creating phony needs for dumbed-down consumers, then convincing them that they need these things, like virtually all consumer products beyond basic needs. The entire mental health field, except for a few bona fide cases of organic brain dysfunction, and the size of our houses, which are palaces next to virtually all of humanity in the past and much of humanity today in less fortunate areas. So the truth is that we end up working our lives away to pursue these illusory lifestyles while giving up our most precious commodity: the time to live free, inspired, original lives. We got kids stealing money from their parents to get Pokemon cards. We got people buying and selling useless things on auction websites, and then on the Antiques Collectibles Roadshow, we get a bunch of lost, boring people collecting trivial material things that add absolutely nothing to the spiritual, intrinsic value of their lives, yet the lines never end. Such is the mentality of a lost society. On all these home time type shows, you got handyman Ted or Martha wasting their lives doing useless projects like redoing the kitchen, putting a hardwood floor in. I'm not down on handyman stuff because there is some craftsmanship there, but a kitchen is a kitchen is a kitchen. You don't feel any better intrinsically after you do a $20,000 remodel of your kitchen. All I need is a hot plate and a pot, and I'm better off than 50% of the world population. Some guys spend their lives on home project after home project. Life should be straight living for soul and experience. I don't care much beyond a place to sit and sleep. I prefer plain surroundings to all that capitalist crap around me. We got Martha, Rebecca, and all those other middle-aged lost souls with their useless home decor crap, as if any of that stuff does anything tangible for your intrinsic soul, making cute cookies or getting new wallpaper. There's a TV commercial about some furniture shop with all kinds of cutesy furniture, and they end it with some girl trying to act real cute and happy saying let yourself go, as if buying some stupid piece of furniture is gonna do something fascinating for your inner well-being. But this is the brainwashed mentality of a lost society trying to find happiness through material things. The other great one is worth it. All these phony babes trying act as though coloring your hair will change your life into a more glamorous fairy tale, or you got that fat-faced phony thinking she's real cute saying you can get a makeover by using some crap and it changes everything. I once lived in an apartment with spider webs hanging down from the ceilings. I've never bothered with home decor much and don't feel deprived because of my lack of appreciation for it. My life is in my head. Home decor is not part of it. Only lost people care about little worthless trinkets or how to make cute cookies like Martha, a mundane, trivial lost soul despite all that money. I don't have body issues, but I happened to see a chubby actress on TV say how she always had an inferiority complex because the world tried to define her body through the models in frivolous magazines and the thin actresses on TV, which destroyed her life for a good many years until she realized that everybody should define themselves by who they are as individuals and celebrate their individuality, not live in this stupid, manufactured world created by the media and the entertainment business. Which leaves many of us feeling deficient and always wanting for more to live up to this invisible standard of coolness. We all have the ability to live great spiritually inspired lives should we so desire, but most of us are victims of a limited materialistic, mass media, frivolous entertainment mindset, trivial consumers with no scope of original yearnings in life. This is the real tragedy of life in the modern era. We're no different than our distant primitive kinfolk, yet we've allowed the pop culture, mass media, academic system take us over and destroy our souls. The tragedy is that we work our butts off for illusory materialistic lifestyles when we could feel a lot better working half as much and owning half as much, not trying to be so cool all the time with our big cars, cell phones and our fake boobs. Look through Fortune or Forbes magazine sometimes. All those corporate types in there are a bunch of sedentary, dull people who've sold their souls for an illusion, and then at night, the TV networks feed us frivolous shows with phony cool people who are supposedly celebrities because they spew out rehearsed lines in sitcoms. There's a lot of good out there but a lot of poison, so watch it and stay away from the bad stuff. Don't let it pollute you. Phony knowledge too. The only real ideology is the free spirit ideology or the activist ideology, which are the same thing. Be active in following your soul. Nobody knows anything more about you in anything about life, regardless of what phony front they put on. It's very simple, you're a primal being just like every other human being in history. All these phonies, all the way from the self-styled New Age, mumbo-jumbo lifestyle type gurus to the so-called academic experts in fields like psychology and sociology, have to justify their existences, their raison d'etre, so they have to keep complicating life by coming out with all manner of useless knowledge masquerading as cutting-edge wisdom. Knowledge is a business commodity, therefore in order to be viable, they have to keep creating new product even if it's useless and a lie as it is when you see through it all. I see the phonies on TV like the body language expert, the time management expert or the get what you want expert, all trying to sell their piddly books, trying to act like they know something enlightened and advanced, Like they spent many years in the research lab methodically studying all this stuff and deriving highly enlightened wisdom from it. I saw one where they categorize a baby into one of either 12 categories of temperament based on parental responses to a series of questions. Then they have cute, little programs all set up about how a parent is supposed to raise the child based on what category the kid supposedly falls into. I even saw a psychiatrist psychoanalyze why women flash their breasts at rock concerts. We got phony experts for love, raising children, how to be a good Christian, how to be a winner, how to get organized, how to be a more effective person, how to be great, how to relax, how to make your dreams come true, etc. It's all trivial bull. Trust yourself. Nobody knows anything more than you about these things. It's all an illusion. If you buy into it, you're a sucker. For things like business and money, you just have to learn the system for yourself. Hashtag 650-659 and number 332 at the library. Then use your own intelligence to make your own decisions. Don't get sucked in by anybody purporting to know something deep and advanced that you don't know. If you think that the current crop of TV talk show gurus offer any manner of pure and simple enlightenment and inspiration, then you're lost. Do these people look like they inspire the spirit of life the way it should be fully lived? Do they look like they have activist spirits that try to get the most out of life? Do they have some primal mystical sensuous psychedelic inspired inner standard in their essences that they live by? Do they know something more about life that enables them to live original, qualitatively superior lives to the rest of the population? They're just regular narcissistic, egomaniacal duds shooting off a bunch of generic bull for the stupid masses who buy it up, then 2 days later wonder why they don't feel any different, why they don't feel like someone on fire for their lives from within themselves. If you want a one-dimensional, conventional approach to managing your life and thinking that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, go ahead, write their little rules and life strategies down, then see how much they will help you live a good, flowing lifestyle. It just shows that you're that lost that you will take anything the system throws out at you and calls wisdom and think it's real, when in actuality it's just modern-day snake oil. All I see is psychobabble, ego and hot air on these shows. I don't see anyone that lights my fire, who really inspires me by watching them. I get some inspiration by watching the preachers, but even they're stuck on their one-dimensional rules of success just like the conventional psychobabblists are. Find your soul and go from there. Most of us are caught up in life as a routine of predictable things we do, then watch TV which gives us their viewpoint as they try to get us to buy into that agenda that they put out as the be-all, and all. But I watch it all with a detached eye, mildly entertained but not bound by any of it. I get beyond it by spending a lot of time simply creating my own thoughts, my own life and my own reality, plus I go outside of the mainstream to find obscure, offbeat viewpoints. I'm able to live in my own theater of the mind so extensively that I create plenty of good feelings, happy thoughts, and cool images within to keep me entertained and inspired. Enlightenment is to have the ability to break from the routine to see the bigger, more romantic, grandiose picture of your life. To live a great life means to romanticize it, to create your own fantasy of how great it is despite what surrounds you. The game is always in your mind. Phony knowledge 3. Life is very simply living by feel, by the spiritual essence within, and not getting bamboozled by all the crap out there. As a free thinker, I've investigated all their viewpoints and occasionally entertain myself with them, but now that I'm not the naive schmuck I was at 20 when I thought that somebody out there knew something more about life than I did, nothing comes between me and my soul anymore, and nothing ever will, all the way from Kant to God to the Three Stooges to the Republicrats to the Chicago Bulls to psychobabble to emotional intelligence distinct from your alleged other intelligence of the intellect. All my thoughts come intuitively from my soul in a unitary flow. I never knew I had two distinct intelligences until some alleged intellectual wrote a book about it with hundreds of adjectives trying to describe this new enlightened concept. Thank you for adding to the useless knowledge of the world. Once you're enlightened, you know it's all bull beyond the mild entertainment you might get out of watching the circus of it all. It's just you as a lone, naked soul like your cave-dwelling ancestors long ago. You were born free and clear with a good mind to figure it all out for yourself and make your own way through, although a good many phony experts will try to make you think otherwise with all their clinical sounding, research methodology, academic mumbo-jumbo diatribes, kinda like the theme of Clockwork Orange, the novel by Anthony Burgess and movie by Stanley Kubrick. They tried to change the guy with all their techniques and devices, but in the end, he was as primal and vile as ever, because you can't change the way you were born in your soul. All this stuff never existed until 50 years ago. I wonder how humanity got along before then? It's all a con, a bunch of phonies trying to act like they know something you don't know, the Wizard of Oz, the Emperor has no clothes, an illusion geared to make money out of lost, naive suckers who buy into it. Success is doing what you love. Career success is an illusion because you're always going for external carrots like the promotion, the expansion, beating the competition, etc. Soul is internal peace and mastery, a lifestyle that generally defies major medical illness because by definition it's about relaxation, calmness, being yourself, hence the absence of stress except for brief periods of excess in doing what you love, which releases endorphins and euphoria anyway. It's being yourself so you don't concern yourself with things that most people do, namely to work your butt off to support a certain materialistic lifestyle which you could easily cut by 50 to 90% if you wanted to. You don't care too much about anything beyond you, like pop culture and mass media, the manufactured so-called news, the phony hype of professional sports, the cult of celebrity, the fashion business, nor the very dry game of politics. Love your soul and don't give in to these imposters. Much of the so-called spiritual knowledge put forth by the world is pure fiction, like most religion, if not all, Eastern Enlightenment, New Ageism, and a massive explosion of the occult arts, the exact same phenomena as liberal arts, an attempt to create phony knowledge to fool lost people and suck money out of them by selling books. Christian bookstores are full of thousands of Christian books when the Bible should be it. They're twisting it in order to make money, acting like goody two-shoes when they're really just as selfish as you or I. Sure, use all this stuff to get some inspiration out of it if it gives it to you, but the bottom line is to find the beat of your own soul and live by it no matter what. The expert complex. Never, ever blindly accept what someone else says without critically analyzing it yourself, because most of the time the one dispensing the advice has an agenda that's usually about selling you something or swaying you to his or her viewpoint for their own reasons. Don't agree with what anybody says, be it a doctor, lawyer, politician, priest, stockbroker, teacher, journalist, etc. Always get at least one other professional opinion and do research on your own. Many unnecessary surgeries are performed just because the doctor wants to make money. Many lawyers string out cases to make money. A barber will always tell you that you need a haircut. No one has divine knowledge over you about life. All these people are in business to make money. Most have an element of sleaziness to them directed at getting your money one way or another. We have a collective mindset where we give so-called professionals divine godlike status as authorities. We assume that if it's written down somewhere in a textbook, it's true, but it was all written by people, most of whom have vested interests beyond you, such as making money for themselves. You have the two most powerful forces in the universe within you should you decide to use them. 1. The primal wisdom your God gave you when you were born. 2. The ability to use your intelligence to research your interests such that you find objective information from at least several sources. Characteristics of an educated or wise person. I got some of these ideas from daringtolivefully.com/educated-person. The first rule is to look at everything that's not objective knowledge as potentially someone else's bullshit. Trust what you think within your own soul. If you need to learn a skill, by all means, learn from others, but everyone is a loner, which means that no one can develop any rules or science of human behavior, yet we have a world full of self-help and psychology experts, which is all bullshit to me. I'm enlightened because of my ability to know that much of the world's knowledge is someone else's bullshit. I don't buy into it. I don't need a shaman, a witch doctor, a priest, therapist, etc. The ability to think clearly and independently. Depth of knowledge. good judgment, strong willpower, see connections among ideas, capacity to endure and persevere, knows how to learn, know myself, know how to make decisions, know how to focus their attention, ability to take initiative and work alone, my own personal nobility, ability to conceptualize and solve problems, discipline to constantly improve, knows about the world, ability to communicate thoughts clearly and concisely, generate ideas, creative, natural curiosity, cooperate when necessary, speak clearly, doesn't do self-destructive things, able to talk to others, make people feel at ease with you, life in proper balance, holistic spiritual aesthetic viewpoint, admit shortcomings and mistakes to self, some arithmetic, reason analytically and critically, productive use of knowledge, knows about money, financial literacy, knows how to deal with change, distinguish between relevant and BS, explore alternative viewpoints, explore multiple perspectives, aesthetic appreciation, doesn't blindly accept, go see for themselves, tries to be happy and successful, questions many things, pursue lifelong learning, can discern truth, have a good overview of the world's knowledge, recognizes the importance of here and now, seeks to see things as they really are, appreciation of beauty and toughness. Chapter 4. Phony Knowledge Guide. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com, free articles and podcasts about life as your own personal adventure away from the BS. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com. plus.google.com/108353041291135362930. facebook.com/pages/school-sucks-the-end-of-public-education/14463974799. twitter.com/SchoolsUCCaseShow. youtube.com/user/SchoolsUCCasePodcast. instagram.com/SchoolsUCCaseProject. itunes.apple.com/school-sucks-podcast-education/ID326517856. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcast/the-hidden-lessons-of-school. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/kids-are-not-defective. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/understanding-teacher-unions. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/children-of-the-state. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/Thaddeus-Russell-vs-academic-conformism. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/above-the-snowflakes. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/campus-crisis. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/campus-correspondence. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/school-news. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcast/ssp-4-0-the-principles-of-learning. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/un-ivers-it-discovering-double-speak-4-parts. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/un-ivers-it-lesson-logic-saves-lives-1-2 SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/the-trivium. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/ssp-4-0-memory-conditioning. SchoolsUCCaseProject.com/category/podcasts/intellectual-self-defense. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/the-trivium-applied-to-communication. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/presence-and-productivity. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/the-6-pillars-of-self-esteem. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/adverse-childhood-experiences-and-resilience. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/stop-procrastinating-now-or-soon. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/speed-and-politics. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/ssp-4-0-productivity-month. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/ssp-4-0-the-creative-pursuit. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/tag/unschooling. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/keys. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/self-teaching-essentials. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/tag/education. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/the-American-way-expanded. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/how-the-truth-became-illegal. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/renegade-history-course-with-Thaddeus-Russell. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/the-philosophy-of-stoicism. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/av-club/un-ivers-ity/live-shows. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcast/podcast-masters-liberty-master-class. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/supplemental-shows. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/porcfest-micro-series. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/nh-liberty-forum. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/category/podcasts/school-sucks-at-the-movies. SchoolsUCCase.project.com/tag/listener-fave. Schools destroy the ability to think freely. The current public education system and the media lock people into a logical, fact-based left brain position. There is one right answer for everything. Thought is verbal, not conceptual. This negates creativity, visionary thinking, generating ideas, inventing things, etc. The right brain is our intuition. They call it visual spatial thinking. This is where you find the artist inspired by unique thoughts. The education system focuses on facts. Many people switch off right brain thinking. After grade school, a lot of our students are crippled for life when it comes to thinking outside the box of convention. This is great for an accountant or some other clone, but not good to create ideas for a better society. Education fills the left brain with information. They demand that you store it, then regurgitate it on the exam paper. If you do this like a robot, you pass. If you analyze it, think it's bull, or otherwise put your own spin on it, you get in trouble. I was criticized for thinking my own ideas in grad school and told to get with the program. Forget about your own ideas until you're established in your field, then you can try them out. The entire formal education system and the rest of society, who are people who were educated at the bastions of the formal education system, the universities, all have a scientific view. They deal in facts that have to be proven by the scientific method. The problem is that most wisdom and a lot of knowledge is intuitive and spiritual. You're born with it. Your God endowed you with it. You feel it. Society wants you to think it with factual thoughts from formal academia, but all the psychobabble in the world still can't touch me living by my own standard the way I feel it in my soul, and strive to release most of my natural energy every day with love and inspiration for the process. That's why all the social science teachers are nerds and liars. A lot of them know they're teaching crap, but they play along for the paycheck. The others are lost souls buying into this garbage masquerading as knowledge and wisdom. The truly enlightened people are off doing their own thing, living their lives by their own standards, not selling their souls for a meaningless clone job. Will you open your heart and mind to be who you were born to be by nature, or will you end up a clone like all those nerds you see around you everywhere, thinking there's something because they have status within the system? Most people live their lives within society's norms and allow it to program their sense of possibility, potential, and who or what they are. Can you live by the flow of the creative force inside of you without necessarily being motivated by money? Most people can't or don't. The school system as indoctrinating tool. Don't trust what they taught you in school all those years ago. They did some good things by teaching you the 3 R's, but implicitly toyed with your mind, firstly by teaching you only a few limited subjects and neglecting other things like creative ability, inherent gifts, your physical potential, possibly your love for animals, your love for nature, your pioneering, farming sensibilities, your desire to create things with your hands, etc. Then they had tests and packaged knowledge down into neat little right or wrong answers, which destroys the intrinsic purpose of knowledge in the first place, to learn because you love to, for the creative, exploratory part of it. By packaging everything into a right or wrong format, creative thinking is tacitly destroyed over time. Finally, they packaged you into a routine like the workday week and implicitly guided you into a standard career path option when you grew up, with no mention of possibly seeking out your own path in life. College was supposedly the path to the golden dream, but it's really the path to a dull career. We're all victims of massive brainwash, whether we realize it or not. In fact, the system is so good at brainwashing us that many of us think we're free, even though we've been led along to subscribe to the standard version of the capitalist American dream without even realizing there are alternative options for people who choose not to follow this version of life. They sent you to school with their hidden agenda and tried to produce a good worker who assumed the system would take care of you as long as you played by its rules, namely get their version of what they call an education, then get a dull job within the system with no forethought of exploring your life, finding out who you really are away from all that stuff, and setting a course that comes from the pure part of you rather than just picking from among the options they offer. School may have given me the 3 R's, but they tried to destroy my soul in the process by channeling my mind into about 8 subjects, and that's it, neglecting other things I might have liked that didn't fit into their mold, like hiking, nature, my personal whims whenever I got them, the aesthetics of life, my interest in animals, archaeology, ancient astronauts, Zecharia Sitchin's work, Dr. Gene Scott's work, UFOs, soulful pursuits, creative expression, musical rhythm, hedonism, sex, romance, money, real estate, business sense, libertarianism, the injustice in the world, the true politics of power, the adventure of life, health, medicine, the body, the stock market, computer skills, the exploration of the subconscious mind, the exploration of my physical limits through intense exertion, the search for euphoria, intensity, and transcendence, meeting a wide variety of different people, seeing a wide variety of different places, trying different things for the experience of them. Watching good TV shows and old movies, studying enlightened people of the past from Socrates to Edison on through to Timothy Leary, a study of man's great imagination in seeking out meaning through religion, sorcery, philosophy, New Ageism, politics, etc. I feel cheated by my public school education. It wasted a lot of my time when I could have been exploring my life on my own, doing what I really wanted to do. To me, it's a lost institution which has degenerated into an archaic bureaucracy. They take a long time to teach the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and supplement it with a lot of useless knowledge most of us will never use, while neglecting the most important knowledge we need to function in life, the ability to think independently on your own, health knowledge, medical knowledge, money, how to deal with people, an awareness of the many job options out there, an awareness of going into business for yourself if you want or pursuing other creative paths if you're so inclined, who you are in your spiritual essence, the adventure that life should be, what your true destiny should be, knowledge of the legal system, how to draw up a contract, how to buy a house, how to be a savvy consumer, how to find information you might need in any subject, how to educate yourself in anything, home repair, basic car care, the obligations of love, marriage, and family life, how to help out in the world, how to be an activist. All things that are way more relevant than what they're teaching in grade school these days. I know that as a free thinker on the fringes of society, I will never change the school system to make it more relevant, but I offer any enlightened school board any of my books as textbooks for a new direction to make school more relevant to life, but this is all a side point to my main argument. Take a look at any college campus and see all the lost souls being cared for by their perception of the benevolent paternalistic institution, this bastion of the system offering a limited education and a package deal of life to those intelligent enough to at least pick a practical major that will yield them a job. But where is the path that says self-education is the real path of education? Almost nowhere, except through the obscure voices of a few enlightened souls, because the system has bred it out of most of us such that people like me are looked upon as outcasts and everybody else are little puppets thinking they got something, but all they really got is a limited education, a lost soul, minds polluted by the media, comfortable homes, and the path to a dull job in the rat race. So what? Creating your own life naturally as you feel it is the only way to go. The truth about college. 1. What do BS, MS, and PhD stand for? Bullshit, more shit and piled higher and deeper. Don't let school interfere with your education. Mark Twain. Who is going to pay for unnecessary stuff in a depression? What is not necessary? History, sociology, English literature, physiotherapy, people can do their own rehab, psychobabble therapy, cosmetic surgery, music, actors, artists, social workers, etc. Check out all the majors any college offers. Which ones lead to a guaranteed decent job? Everything else is the lie of college. Unless you are getting a technical degree, you would probably learn more apprenticing in a real business that interests you, studying on your own and taking courses part-time, but you're brainwashed like everyone else. You think some social sciences degree in some soft major is gonna put you on the fast track to get a good job. Go ahead. Look for a job with a master's degree in history, psychology, etc. For some professions you need a degree for technical knowledge, but most of the time a degree is just a screening device to show that you can study hard and persevere. If an individual took all the money they spent on college and invested it, they would have a good chunk of interest payments and dividends coming in every year. I'm generally more pro-trade/technical school, working around for a while to find what you really like to do, start a business or do your own thing to earn money like I do writing these books. Unless you're going for a bona fide skill in college which will end up in a dull but steady job, don't waste your time on the liberal arts subjects. All true artists and intellectuals learn on their own as they live their lives. You don't need some nerd calling him or herself a university professor to teach you anything you can't learn yourself on your own. Rather than spending all that money for college, it would probably go a lot further if you used it to start a business. Most people who get rich did it by starting their own businesses and selling things, not by going to college then working a dull so-called professional job somewhere. A lot of business graduates from most schools are having a harder time finding business executive jobs, but for one reason or another, employers like to hire business grads from Christian colleges. College is a business, the degree is the commodity with no guarantees. They paint an attractive picture of themselves as centers of enlightenment and the roadway to material success, but it's really all about them getting money from you to run their business, so don't bite unless you're going into a bona fide nuts bolts field with real jobs in the real world. I've seen my share of people sheltered away in a college getting a master's or a doctorate in a relatively useless field only to realize they were virtually unemployable after the fact because jobs in the field were sparse, and any employer in the real world who sees a PhD on a resume looking for a regular job thinks that the guy is an arrogant tit. So do your research first before you decide to study some useless field like philosophy, history, psychology, sociology, literature, and most other liberal arts fields. Having spent several years in college and earning several degrees, I now realize that it was all a waste of time for me, just my way of postponing entry into the real world of work. I now subscribe to Abe Lincoln's philosophy that the self-educated man or woman is the only way to go. You can teach yourself for most things you need in much less time, plus the fact that the only thing that matters is the specific job in front of you, and you forget just about everything you learn in college, 99% of which is not practical anyway. People pay lots of money to go to this company called a college or a university and waste time on useless things, then eventually get a piece of paper which supposedly gives them a stamp of approval for a good paying job. Reality in the real world is production, industry, consumer products, real goods and services, not artsy-fartsy majors in college. It's a crime how they offer those useless majors to those naive students who don't have a clue about what the real world is really all about. Many think they can get a good job with a useless liberal arts degree or any other useless major because the university is offering it, therefore, they conclude there must be a demand. This is assumed thinking. You've assumed wrongly and made an ass out of you and me. Get real. College is a fantasy world with a bunch of blockheads who didn't have the guts to go into the real world, stuck there acting all smart as if they know something real about life that you don't know. It ain't so. The truth is you can learn almost anything you need to know in life, like real estate, money, practical skill, etc., in a short while on your own rather than paying some boring guy to spew it back at you, not to mention all the useless incidental things they teach there masquerading as education that doesn't apply to real life. Every true intellectual I've ever met was a free thinker unaffiliated with any educational institution. Formal education boxes and sanitizes all knowledge for public consumption, which is anti-intellectual, plus it also creates a lot of non-knowledge, basically useless articles that they have to fill their academic journals up with, thus creating a mystification effect whereby naive students think there's something worthy there when in reality, it's all psychobabble and bull. But that's the system and that's the way it is, so now you know before you go in. Teachers are all emotion and ego, just like all people. Play them like you play anybody, with flattery and interest. If you miss class, they take it personally and give you low marks. If you smile and sit at the front, they like you and give you high marks. Despite all I'm saying, many young folks still like to go to college because they don't know what they want to do with their lives anyway, plus the hidden agenda, that of leaving home for the first time, experimenting with life, meeting new people, taking useless courses to find out what you like, etc., all in a relatively safe environment. All this is fine and good, but unless you or your parents are rich, it's ultimately a waste of time if you go to college in pursuit of a degree that won't get you anywhere. You can learn about the world just as well by working a job which pays real money rather than slugging it out as a poor student. Many people get depressed at college because it all seems so meaningless. You don't have time for this in the real world. If you're an intelligent human being with the ability to find a decent job where you can work your way up through your own efforts, you'll be better off than wasting time at college. 90% of all rich people have made their fortunes through selling things. Doctors live well but don't get rich, and they work way too hard for the money. Most lawyers live well but don't get rich unless they luck out on a personal injury case. I understand that you've been brainwashed to think you need a piece of paper called a degree to get through in life, but it ain't necessarily so. Trust yourself and your ability to learn on your own. Look at all these people from foreign countries who make it here without a college degree because they're good workers and smart about their money. College for most things ain't worth it. You need it for specific skills like nursing, architecture, chiropractic, etc., but everything without a specific practical end product is dead for its value to earn you money, which is the only thing that matters in the real world. Don't study sociology, anthropology, psychology, archaeology, or virtually any other ology out there unless you're ready to go all the way to a doctorate and you're sure there are jobs available after graduation. I've known several PhDs who couldn't find jobs in their specialties and they were too overqualified for other jobs, so the time and money on the degrees was wasted. The world is not as etched in stone as it was 30 years ago. Then the American dream was a college degree, but now, the world is more wide open, more accepting of a person's worth as he stands in front of you doing his job or thinking his original ideas. Intelligent, bright-eyed, enthusiastic people can get a job on the bottom rung of any company anywhere by being persistent and then moving up as they prove themselves. This is the way it works whether you have a degree or not. You walk into the interview to prove yourself. Intelligent people don't put much stock in most degrees as determinants of job capability except in such things as aeronautical engineering where you obviously need such a degree. I'm warning you again with all my heart. I was a college boy because I liked the free and easy lifestyle, albeit poor, living off student loans and assistantships and having a justifiable excuse as to what I was doing with my life, but I've seen many come, get useless degrees, then end up desperate, taking taxi cab jobs or joining the military, and even that's not automatic anymore. The most important things in life are always learn it alone, either via experience or getting a book on the subject and reading it out of sheer interest or necessity. All my buddies who started their own businesses wasted that time spent in college. I know several people who got master's degrees in journalism and other communications majors like TV production but couldn't find jobs. The college doesn't care about the job market. They make money from your tuition, never mind that there are no jobs in your chosen field because supply of degree holders outstrips demand. If I were redesigning our college system, I'd completely overhaul it and get rid of the junk to focus totally on practical matters. Some of these things they're teaching are total fantasy, created in the minds of ivory tower people and have no relevance to the real world. Go to college to learn things that'll help you get a job. Don't waste your time on the fluff. High school students need some kind of orientation so they know what's real in life. Many see a cute major in a college calendar and take it assuming that there are jobs waiting on the other side, but there often aren't. There's just too much waste and fantasy in our colleges. I realize that the degree is the foot in the door for many jobs like with the government, but know what you're doing before you decide what to study, and buy my job books now in advance so you'll learn some reality about the job market. Job books are at number 331 at the library. As far as certain majors go like music and physical education, the world is overfull of people with master's degrees in these fields who can't find a reasonable teaching job because supply outdoes demand handily. Another one is law. There are 1 million people with law degrees in the United States. Law schools keep pumping out graduates because that's how they make money. There are just too many lawyers for the demand. After studying the business world, #650-659 at the library, on my own and writing a few books on the subject, I've come to the conclusion that the 6 or so years it takes to get an MBA is wasted time. It might get your foot in the door, but what you actually learn is simply not practical in the real world. I read a book called The 12-Hour MBA Program and found maybe 10% of the information in it had any real practical value. You'd probably be better off taking a condensed salesman's course somewhere than starting in some company with zeal and a willingness to learn on the job. You'll probably end up further than hanging out in school for that archaic business degree. Christian colleges with business majors are probably your best bet because people see these graduates as moral, hard-working folk on the straight and narrow and hire them. If you want to go into business for yourself, don't waste time in college. Get a job in the type of business you want to start and learn there. Another myth I don't buy is that of the different quality of different colleges. It all comes down to perception and what's in a name. All accredited colleges follow a certain, standard protocol and all teach basically the same curriculum out of generic textbooks. Professors are human beings. They're basically the same. A teacher at Harvard isn't much if any different than a guy at some small college. They went through the same hoops and got the same degrees. Most professors are boring guys who, at some point, realize they've chosen the wrong profession, stuck with students who don't give a damn about anything beyond the letter grade on the transcript. Many get alienated from what's real and end up teaching from an ivory tower bubble, caught up with their egotistical power trips over their students. Beyond that, it's downright stressful. I've been with longtime professors a minute or so before their classes and I could sense the tension in them. It never ends. Many try to get by with the least effort, by doing the minimal amount of work, regurgitating the same stuff from the past 10 years. I was a college teacher for a while. It ain't like what you see on TV. It's boring to teach the same course over 20 times, which I did, 2 classes per semester plus summer courses. It comes down to filling up time, and most teachers give up on trying to entertain the students. They just play out a script of least resistance, give dull lectures and predictable tests, the students get a decent mark and don't hassle them. Most education is transitory, it goes in one ear and out the other, therefore, a college degree over a year old is dead unless constantly refreshed by current knowledge on the job. Before you go to a conventional academic college, check out the technical colleges and vocational schools in your area to see what they have to offer that's more realistic in terms of finding true employment. If you're in doubt about your life, as most people are in their 20s, don't necessarily waste it at college getting a useless degree. Get a skill that takes relatively little time to learn, then do it for a while and collect a good paycheck while you find your true identity. You can get a commercial driver's license and drive truck, or get an allied health profession relatively easily within a year or two of school, then have a steady job while you indulge your other interests and figure something else out as you get older. A good book is The Knowledge Factory, Dismantling the Corporate University and Creating True Higher Learning by Stanley Aronowitz. The truth about college too. You are looking for a skill or skills that allow you to find a decent job and or be self-employed. That's it. If you want knowledge for its own sake, you don't need college. Do it by yourself. In a college setting, all thought must be packaged into fields and subfields, then streamed through the formula generally called the scientific method / quantitative research methods, which makes everybody involved go into this box where they talk like a bunch of parrots, using this academic mumbo-jumbo as if it means something, which, over time, destroys their ability to think freely as they go along with the system. The scientific method is necessary for pure science, but for liberal arts, it's useless, yet this is the standard they live by. The other thing about colleges is ego's peak, all the alleged intellectuals trying to act intelligent and pedantic, playing own-upmanship games with each other, when in reality, they're a bunch of clones playing the game of packaged knowledge, not one of them free enough to break from the pack to offer true wisdom, which only comes in little bits and pieces through the life experiences of real people in the real world, not anything in a lab setting. Remember Roosevelt's speech: the credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena living life, not the nerd in the classroom reading dry textbooks about it. They have to break from quantitative research methods and go to great literature and biographies to find true insight into life. As far as enlightenment about life goes, you'd be better off reading great stories like Homer's Odyssey, Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath, Dickens's Great Expectations, the Bible, and the lives of great originals throughout history, all the way from Alexander the Great to Marco Polo to Francis Bacon to Samuel Hearne, the most unsung explorer out there and perhaps the greatest, braving the colds of the Arctic for many years to chart it. Most men would have counted their lucky stars after one trip and packed it in, but Hearne kept going back for more. This is real human toughness, real character, the real human soul come to life. After this, how can you take any of the psychobabble in those psychology textbooks seriously? You either got soul or you don't, none of this piddly 7 habits of highly effective people crap, as if you're gonna construct a highly functioning human being by following a bunch of stupid steps as you encounter the different situations in your life. I couldn't even remember 7 steps, much less follow them. What are you supposed to do? Keep a list in your pocket, then refer to them as you encounter the different situations in your life, deciding on which ones you'll use. It was spiritual flow from the day I was born, and that's what it'll be when I die. Alexander the Great lived his life conquering Europe and Asia until he died from a battle wound. He didn't psychoanalyze his life or follow some nerdy life strategies, he followed his soul right up until the very end. Yet even in these supposedly enlightened times, we still get nerds coming on the talk shows with little letters after their names acting like they know something you don't know about life, wearing their cute little sanitized clothes, acting all trendy and enlightened. Al would have put them to work in the galley and told them to get off this phony Roman aristocracy, snobbish bull. As far as a system of knowledge goes, despite its imperfections, the formal academic system is the best we got, but college is not the be-all, and all of life. Society needs more people who stand on the fringes, watch it all, then try to tell them that they're a bunch of lost souls, but I know they won't listen, because to acknowledge us would be to acknowledge that they're living a lie, so they conveniently dismiss us as nutcases and go off to live in their delusions as the advanced intellectuals of their day. We have entire libraries dedicated to the liberal arts like philosophy, psychology, sociology, mental health, the field of education, teaching people how to think, self-help, personal coaches, image consultants, motivation experts, life strategists, etc., all purporting to investigate the phenomena of life, while I'm the lone artist telling them they're a bunch of silly nerds. 100 years ago barely none of this stuff existed except for philosophy, and suddenly they created it all out of thin air, and now when they say something like attention deficit hyperactive disorder, most people, who are brainwashed by the world, automatically think it's a legitimate, professionally analyzed, clinical condition, when the truth is that it's just a convenient label for a kid who may be a free spirit, nonconformist, or doesn't particularly like school, and the so-called therapist who diagnosed him gets to make money from therapy sessions, so it's in his best interest to diagnose as many kids as possible to achieve the bottom line, money. I challenge this entire approach to the study of life because they've taken something simple and made it massively complex based on stilted quantitative research methods in a business model which must constantly expand in order to appear viable. People skills are easy as they always were. Be gentle, try to understand others, let them talk, show that you can relate. It's that simple, not about all those useless so-called therapies they're brainwashing us with. Following a series of discrete steps like the habits of highly effective people, the steps to get the edge or life strategies might motivate you for a few days, but then you'll come crashing down and go back to your mundane self because they give you no base or engine to operate from, which is the soul, which, if you're tapped into it, you have all the power in the universe because it's all backed up by love of life for its own sake. But if you're not, you're just plodding along trying to be successful at some goal or agenda outside of yourself from the world, and all attempts at motivation will be cheap, raw, go-get employs that cannot inspire you because they don't connect with your soul. Everybody starts out with a soul, which is your inherent essence, which is who you are, and life for the pure is to unleash it to full fruition. You're a holistic being for now and evermore. You can't be packaged into a label. There are no stages or syndromes to life, nor specific personality traits. It's just a lone individual trying to live by what they feel within day by day without letting it get clouded over by the influences of a stupid world overcrowded with useless knowledge from the so-called formal academic system. Try #650.14 or HF5382.7 at the library for career-oriented books. Ironstring.com. College snobbery. When I was a kid, it was always assumed that the winners in our classes were the ones who would go to college. I rarely heard anyone ever talk about going out to explore your life in a bohemian way, to live some of your youth as an interesting adventure and discover your true identity at the same time. Nowadays in North America it's the straight career track right from the SATs onto that stupid, cheesy ritual of getting a piece of paper called a degree on graduation day, at least half of which I would say are useless to get a decent job, but the universities don't tell you that. Their business is to sell classroom space, and many of the students are so stupid they didn't bother to check to see what the career prospects are in the major they're taking. They just assume that if the university is offering it, there must a job waiting at the other end, but in many cases, there isn't. This is the dirty little secret the colleges don't tell you about their business. College snobbery is the idea we have left over from the old days before technological era when they educated men to be the leaders of society in general non-technical fields. We still think that going to college is the path to the highest status mode of living, but it's really not, for precisely the fact that the money is in technology and specific skills. The bullshit arts are starting to be recognized for what they are, bullshit. Graduate psychology, sociology, and English literature degrees are a dime a dozen. Even lawyers are starting to be perceived as bullshit artists. The ultimate real winners of life are the people who start and run their own businesses. This is followed by people with a bona fide skill that's in demand everywhere, like sheet metal worker or X-ray tech. Even despite this reality, many people still think that going to college for some soft artsy degree is still the path to success until after they graduate and see how hard it is in the real world. If you learn one thing in this book, learn that you had better get a bona fide skill and forget about all that brainwash about college being the automatic entryway to the American dream. The entryway is you working your ass off at some practical need that people have, not these romantic fantasies about college being the easy breezy path to success, something like if you get a degree or two, you're set for life. It does not work that way in the real world. Teaching compassion. For all our education and technology, we're still a bunch of self-centered to selfish to evil people who will exploit and abuse others for our own gain, which is why I say we need a course in grade school to teach us to respect other people, animals, and nature, and not to exploit anything for financial gain, to get away from current capitalist standards which justify doing anything to make more money. We have to teach people to not solve disputes with violence. Try to negotiate or let the authorities handle it. If somebody commits a violent act, we should ask ourselves why they did it and try to understand them while we lock them up and give them anger management classes. When we pollute the land, we are killing our planet. Children should be taught ecology in grade school. Chapter 5. Formal education is good, but there's more. I believe money, business, jobs, and real estate should be taught in grade school. I wrote these super books because I believe practical knowledge is very important, more so than academic knowledge, for a lot of people who will never use academic subjects in their daily lives. I have a vested interest in licensing my books to school boards or selling them outright to schools and students, but it's not like everybody is running to me to change the school systems into more practical vehicles of education in things that matter in life. At some point in time, the people will realize that money management is more important than history or literature. Until then, we will continue to be stupid because we're too scared or too lazy to break away from convention. I could reform the education system of any country, but nobody gives the true pioneers opportunities. They wait until their ideas become commonplace. It's too risky for them to go in for reform with guns ablazing. Nobody has got any true grit anymore among the bureaucrats and politicians. We must teach career development in grade school. I was a naive kid. I wasn't as naive as one of my friends, but I was naive. He was groomed as a creative genius by his grandmother. He was an intellectually inspired kid with good marks in school, but the problem he and his grandmother didn't count on was that high marks in flowery subjects in school mean nothing in the real world. They were living in a fantasy world thinking he is so special. People will line up to hear his wisdom and knowledge when he becomes an adult. The truth is that he was not suited for a regular job in the real world. He was brought up in a fantasy of dinosaurs, archaeology, great literature, music, and fun school stuff. That is not the real world. He dropped out of college because it wasn't like the flowery life he led in grade school. I went to college. I started in business administration, which was too boring for me. I moved to political science, which I realized was BS because there are no real ideologies. It's just about power. I got into psychology because I thought that would be interesting. It wasn't. It was basically a big lie of fake knowledge, but that's another story. I was stupid enough to believe that if you get one or several degrees in any subject, there are jobs waiting in that field because the college is offering it. That's the way the system works. That's a big lie. Federal governments and societies need someone like me to get real on the big deceptions. We have to restructure our school systems to take out the fluff and teach practical subjects, but we also must teach kids about the real world of business and work so they don't end up going to college, getting a doctorate in psychology, then realizing there are very few jobs in that field. We have to teach kids what the real occupations are and how to start a business. We cannot go on like we do now, where kids think if I play by the rules and get these degrees, there will automatically be a job there. If I had my way, I would restructure colleges too and throw out all the fluff. They are mostly private businesses even though many are publicly funded. I can't do that, but I can warn kids not to get degrees in soft social science subjects if they want to get a real job. It's all about specific, practical skills.